Hello, people. This is Carla with Mindplore and Friends. And today I have friends. One friend should be here. Two people are here, supposed to be here, but they're not here yet. But I believe that they will be here. I want to tell you, we are changing the format a little, and I'm all excited about it. Today, I have Kamran Rizvi, Kamran Khan, and Asif Azad, and we should be joined by Leif Edvardson and Shafat Hamzi. And we're going to be doing things a little differently. Let me tell you how important connections are. All of these people, well, Asif came through Kamran, but Kamran and the other guys, the two Kamrans came through Rehan Alawala. And this all started because he found me through a friend. And what we talk about here, I found because of my connection with Art of Living and Sri Sri Ravi Shankar that started over 30 years ago. So it is who we meet and how we connect with people that makes our lives more juicy, more fun, more enjoyable, but also very knowledgeable. And I feel honored to have these men here. Hopefully the other two will be here very shortly. I said the room was full and I asked two people to leave, which I'm sorry I did right now, but it's what happens. But it's the connections that we make in the world that make our lives what it is. And I'd like to talk a little, have these men talk a little about the importance of connections. Kamran Rizvi, I just met recently. Maybe he can begin and then we can go to Kamran Khan and then Asif. Good morning, everyone. No, it's good afternoon. Anyway, it is what it is.
So, Carla, you want me to say a few words?
Yes, I want you to introduce yourself. You're new to the panel.
Yes, I am. And I'm here to learn. I'm here to learn. And, well, just a brief background. I'm very happy to meet Kamran Ali Khan and Asif Azad. I think I may have met Asif in Lahore with Amna Butt, probably. I'm not sure. But I was doing a session there, and it was with women entrepreneurs. And during a break, now you look familiar. Maybe you're someone else. I'm not sure. Well, my background is largely to do with learning and development. I'm based in Islamabad, but I work all over the country with a team of around 100 people scattered all over the country, volunteers, associates. And the work is largely around self-awareness, awareness of others, awareness of environment, because ultimately it is the behaviors that result in the outcomes we witness. And when we look at the pandemic that we are part of, I usually relate this to an invitation for us to pause, slow down, reflect in terms of who we are, what we are, how we've gotten to where we are. Because in this mad rush towards growth, which is a good thing, but at times, if it is driven by greed, if it is driven by avarice, if it is driven by competition of a kind that is destructive, then we end up in a situation where society begins to fracture. And I feel that when I was speaking with Carla the first time, the Institute of Peace is what resonated with me. And I realized that when we talk of peace, for example, it comes largely from peace within. And it is quite a challenge to be able to uh, take a deep dive into self. And I'm familiar with Shanaz Minalla and other associates of hers who were working in art of living. And I heard a lot about Sri Sri Ravi Shankar. And I'm very much attuned to and open to the spiritual as an idea, because I feel we are spiritual beings having a human experience. So when uh, Carla implored that I join this forum, I felt honored, and frankly, I was fortunate enough to make some time today uh, in order to learn. My deep motivation when I saw your names, Asif and Kamran Ali Khan, I was eager to actually learn from those on the panel. So I'm very honored to be here, and I'm ears, and when needed, if you provoke me, of course, I will share whatever is in my mind. But of course, it's all perspectives, and I'm not a bastion of knowledge. Thank you.
Okay, Cameron, what is your take about connections and how we're connected and how things like this forums start because of the connections that we make throughout the world?
Okay. I take it from an earthly and a very, very, I love metaphors. So, to give you an example, when I was attending a course at Harvard back in '97, Professor Heifetz, who has a very Sufi bent, uh, ran a phenomenal program on leadership. And I recall I was so moved by the experience that I approached him and I said, I feel like a drop meeting with the ocean. And that metaphor, I think, can give you a sense of the connection I felt. And ever since, whenever I experience rain, I see raindrops falling from the sky, and each raindrop has its own identity as it hurtles down to earth. And it thinks itself to be separate from the other till it meets its destiny and discovers that we're all one. So for me, that is a metaphor which drives me in terms of my sense of what connection is. And the other aspect which drives me as well is that we all come from the soil and we go to the soil. And we all came from the mother's womb crying, and we'll all return. And I hope when we do, others would be crying and we'd be laughing. So, life as we know it, from my perspective, is virtual, the one that we know. And the real world has yet to open to us. And if we take this world too seriously, I think we are um, in a folly, in a state of folly. It is to be enjoyed, it is to be lived in, it is to feel the unseen and the unknown. I feel this world is a beautiful place, and even though we may be physically distanced, I don't feel that. I feel that we are connected through this medium called the internet. But we are connected emotionally, spiritually, and otherwise. So those are some of my thoughts. I can't see myself as separate from the rest of humanity.
And we're also connected by something very essential, the breath we breathe. And
Absolutely.
if we're not breathing, we're not on the planet. It's like
Yeah,
we're in an ocean of air, and that ocean connects us all. And what's so
absolutely.
sad about it, people don't realize that. So
Thank you. Thank you.
you're welcome. Kamran Khan. Having two Kamrans is going to be very confusing for me, but I'll deal with it.
Well, may I suggest I'm KZ and he's KA.
KZ and KA. Okay, Kamran A.
That
I
is
have
that
to
is
say
if Kamran Ali Khan has no problem with that. I mean, I just came
Uh,
up with.
Kamran.
I don't have any problem with this, and I would like to welcome Kamran Rizvi Saab here,
Thank you.
and the kind words which he spoke in the beginning. And obviously, we are all here to extend into the dimension of learning. As far as this connectivity is concerned, it is something beautiful and it is something strange. The beauty, as Kamran Rizvi Saab has mentioned, is there when there is a drop, but when that drop realizes its potential, and when that drop knows that it is actually an ocean inside a drop. The ocean and the drop metaphor, especially in Sufism, they are they are quite paradoxical in their nature. The reason is that a Sufi loves to be a drop, but he does not want that drop to be in seclusion or in isolation. So when we are referring to a drop, actually we are referring to the ocean, because without ocean, all of the characteristics of the ocean are into the drop. And today, actually, it is very easy to understand with the help of that quantum level of mechanics which we have in science. And it tells us that there are actually, we are actually fields. This reality, what Kamran Rizvi Saab was mentioning as something virtual, it is in real a virtual reality, and this is now more explored by science. Actually, science is now has now crossed a very thin, subtle barrier, which actually had that science and spirituality thing. Uh, it's a transition, and that transition in Sufism it's called barzakh. So
Okay.
that transition is sort of now overlapped. Sufism spirituality has crossed into science, science has gone into spirituality. The objective is very simple: to make people know that they are more than just their bodies, just their minds, and even they are more than their souls. Because when you talk of soul, when you talk of an individual, that individual is actually a recipe for the universe. There is a saying in uh, Eastern spirituality that an individual is a manifestation of the universe, and the science at the moment sees it the other way around. It focuses on the cosmos and it sees the individual as a part of it, but the reality is totally different as far as the spirituality is concerned. The the human being, the actual human being, the human being who has actualized his potentials or her potentials, that human being is a recipe for the cosmos, and it is not the other way around. So I think Shafat Saab is here. We would like to have an introduction from him. But the simple point is that connectivity is not an external phenomena, it's an internal phenomena. And we are witnessing this internet through science, but this internet has been there for centuries, for eons, I will say. The only thing is that we have physical devices today like routers and switches and hubs and bridges, but these internal devices are much more powerful receivers and transmitters. The only thing we need to learn through the help of this scientific metaphor is how to turn them on. That's my take on it.
Mm.
Shafat, can you introduce yourself? You're new and we're excited to have you as part of the team.
Thank you, Carla. Thank you, Kamran. Well, we've got two of you here. So, assalamu alaikum both, and
Walaikum
very,
assalam.
very
I'm sure the
respected
other
gentleman here.
two are as excited to have you here too. They just haven't spoken yet.
Such an honor and a real privilege to be part of the community and part of your audience group, especially sharing such a beautiful panel of learned men and yourself. So, Assalamu alaikum. Well, briefly, I'm the chairman for Stallion Gates Asset Management, based out of Abu Dhabi, UAE. I'm also the CEO and founder of Brandbeat Advertising and Communications, which is 7 different offices globally. And we are so privileged to even work out on the branding for Carla. We just met yesterday, and we just put up a new, look and feel to Mindplore that you must have seen. So that's pretty much about it. So still more on a backseat today, trying to learn, and we'll see wherever we can add some value in the discussion.
Well, what do you feel about connections? Because it's the connections made through Rayhan and me that I know these people. I mean, the only person who did not come directly from Rayhan was Aspen, but he came through Kamran K. Um, so, how do you feel? We all get connected, and we get connected in such special ways,
You
and
know, I
now
think
you're connected.
I think connectivity starts. The first step is recognition. You need to recognize that there is something around you or within you which you need to connect with. Whether there's anything within yourself you need to make a relation with. So the first step is having awareness of an object, a person, another self of yours, a supreme being. And unless we are not aware of it and we do not recognize it, we can't really create a connection. So that's step one. Now, it all starts with self exploration and self awareness, and multiple other things. And once you start believing that, yes, there is something within myself, so there is a positive part of mine and there's a bad part of mine. When you try to develop connections, it's all about who you communicate more with. So if I, it's just like, because you have to nurture that connection and make it strong. And how the more you communicate with either part, the more it reflects in who you are, because this is how it works. So essentially, sometimes during our own exploration, we also understand that there are people who you meet and somebody gives you good vibes and somebody gives you bad vibes. The only reason is that to which part of their self they're actually communicating with on a regular basis. And this really sets up when people talk about good intentions or bad intentions or whatsoever it is. Furthermore, we all human, be it souls or be it ourselves physically, I believe we all live in an environment, and we all need an environment to sort of survive. Now, in that case, we are one way or the other continuously communicating with our environment because there's an effect. And it's just like that you sow a seed in the soil, and in one soil it grows well, it nurtures well, and in another barren land it doesn't really nurture well. So the environment has a huge impact. It's just how you fit and how your composition sort of, fits in. And therefore, it's about the communication starting from atoms making compounds, how the ions, sort of communicate with each other, how our cells and neurons communicate with each other. So for anything to transform, to become stronger, let's say there are two objects, one has to give away something and one has to give away another thing to form something. And it's the same thing as while we're making connections and in communication, that there's a lot I can learn from you, and there are probably a few little things we can somehow learn from each other. So it's giving away information, it's giving away a bit of your own self, your own identity, being flexible, opening that membrane out to sort of create that compound. So connectivity, I believe, is extremely important. And furthermore, I think within this relationship, when we're building these relationships, one key element is communication. Now, in general life, in case of a human, we have, verbal communication and nonverbal communication. And all of these things sort of have an impact on the relation. And I think the content of communication, the media that you're using to communicate, the frequency of communication, these are the three core things on which our connections and our connectivity really depends. And this is how we also define different type of personality types. Somebody's an introvert, somebody an extrovert, somebody who talks more and communicates more with outer world. More people is an extrovert personality. Somebody who thinks deep, is a thinker, is a visionary, and is more connected within himself. And then we have Sufis, which is a special category. And I believe that that category is one of the finest people because they reach that realm to creating a balance of internal communication, external communication, and a communication with the third realm.
Okay. So, how do you feel about the connection that was made yesterday between? I'm all excited about it. We need to get to Asif. But how do you feel about it?
Carla, I think it's amazing. Sometimes people might start at a wrong foot, but when you get to know each other, when you get connected, I think it's all about, when we talk about commonalities and common objectives, this is where connections happen, you see. And when we try to put back our egos, give away our selfish attitude, look for something which is greater than self, and usually, what is greater than self is an objective, which is greater than a selfish objective. And it's more for the community, more for the people. So I think we found that commonality, and that made us really, really excited to, work on few things. You're doing something for peace, and with the sponsorship of Rehan Bhai and a number of other people, I thought that this is something we should all be part of.
And I'm so glad you did join us. Thank
Such
you
an
so
honor.
very
Thanks
much.
to you.
They keep saying that, but I'm just thankful to all you guys for wanting to do this. I said,
Yes.
want to add something to this, and then you guys can talk?
Yeah. Well, it's all about connection. Connection is everything. Connection is the life itself. We are all connected just because of the connection of each other. It is said, kabutar ra kabutar, baas ba baas. Like energy attracts like energy. And nowadays, the frequency or the type of energies we have now in our system is all about collaboration. Like people are now collaborating with each other because their aim and the purpose of life is same. So yes, connection is the key, and nowadays there is everything. It's all about connection. But in mysticism, at at some stage or some state, connection itself is an illusion. But that is another topic. Right now, yes, it's all about connection. And now we are all like-minded people, and I think have some kind of same goal. And the same goal is, first of all, acceptance of each other, the diversity that brings harmony in society and within self also. So, peace, harmony, it's all about connection. And the more we come across to each other and communicate with each other and understand each other, we got more connected. And then there is a field that is called the unity or unified field, yes, where connection itself resolves. Because for connection, there is a point A and point B. When both are merged or unified, connection, in fact, was an illusion at that moment. That is my point of view.
Okay, and we have, I believe we have Life, if he isn't having any problems with his mic. Mike, are you there? I mean, Life, are you there? Now we can't hear you. Life. Don't. I think we can't hear you. Oh, what a shame. Okay, who wants to add something about connections? I mean, everyone's saying such good stuff. Go on, Cameron. Z. And we can't hear you because you muted yourself. Unmute yourself, please.
As I was listening to my friends here, I was reflecting at the same time, and it shows that I'm not a good listener. So the connection can sometimes break when you are listening and your own mind starts to uh, come up with ideas as well. So maybe that's something I have to learn how to improve. But there were two thoughts that came, and I must confess them, which was that unless we transcend, we cannot connect, number one. And it comes partly from what Shafat was saying, KA was saying, and Arif, uh, Asif, sorry. And the other word was letting go. And these two aspects I feel are critical and preconditions for connection of a kind where we don't see ourselves as separate, but we see ourselves as one. Even though we may have physical appearances that look different, but we are essentially from the same fabric, as I mentioned earlier. So transcending and letting go. And I find that these two are very challenging terms. Back in 1976, when I was in London, my mom was very into transcendental meditation. And Maharishi Mahesh Yogi had been visiting London, and she invited him over to her house. And for me, it was like, hey, who's this guy? I mean, I couldn't make any sense of it at that time. But I feel that subliminally, I got inclined towards appreciating from afar the subject of spirituality, Sufism, the transcendent. And I'm very glad that Kamran, aka, was mentioning quantum physics. And nowadays, there's so much access to knowledge that Netflix has some documentaries that really confound the mind. And this cross section of spirituality and science really excited me when you spoke about it, KA. So these are some of my thoughts. Thank you.
Actually, uh, I have been working on this for quite some time, and we have been doing for the last 10 years. I've been with News One, and we have been doing a show called Mazahib or Akle Insani. That actually it has been a unique experience globally. And one thing which Shafat Sah was also mentioning, uh, this connection thing, this is now more of a buzzword. The beauty of this commercial world is that every now and then, in a decade or so, it takes in the terminology from a vast pool of knowledge that has not been into the into the mindset of the people, and then those terminologies are extracted, diluted, and rather than being absorbed, they are, rather than being inhaled, they are exhaled into the environment in a fashion which adds to the the commercial beauty of things. The problem with this phenomena is that uh, the reality of things, or the reality of ideas, or even the lexicon of Sufism or even science, it is diluted to an extent that now, for example, if we talk about connection, let me give you an example. If you are on an airport and you just want to have an access to the public Wi-Fi, you just turn your Wi-Fi on, and if there is a Wi-Fi around, you get connected. There has to be a parent Wi-Fi signal in order to achieve that connection. So the point is, it's a very subtle point, but the point is that universally the connection has been established. It is there as a part of creation, and that connection, we only need to tune in to that mass connection, and we connect. It's not something, connections are not created. This is my point. I cannot create a connection with uh, all of you, or for that matter, when I delve into my solitude, into myself, that that solitude and that practice of spirituality, it is to actually fine tune your receiver in order to get connected with the mainstream of transmission. That transmission is there, and it is there, it will be there, it was there, because that is the system, that is the framework. Now the problem with today's intellectual mindset is that we think that we can create, although I don't totally disagree with this. As a part of being the finest of the creations, we have been bestowed with an ability to create, but that creation is not without the things which are already created. We can just utilize the available resources, and we can then, sort of extend those resources, or rather connect those resources in a particular fashion to create something new. And this is what artists do, this is what musicians do, this is what quantum physicists do. The actual idea, the real thing, it cannot be invented. This is my point. This is the spiritual point of view. Actually, things are already there. If you can fine tune, and this is exactly what uh, this uh, many people, I'm just not getting the name at the moment. It is the game of frequencies, it is the game of vibrations, and it is the game of energies. And if we can harness all of these three, and the only way to harness all of these three is through delving inside yourself, making that connection. And in order to make that connection, I'll connect that statement of KZ, which is of a prime importance. How do you identify yourself? Most of the time, if I am communicating with the negative part of myself, which is affected by the external environment, and then I am reflecting, and then I am communicating through that negative intention, I'll have a negative vibe, so to say. So this is a negative air which a person carries. Sufism, on the other hand, tells you faqad man arafa nafsahu faqad arafa rabbahu. Though the person who knows himself, who he knows his Lord. What is the Lord? Lord is the two swings of your internal frequencies. One is the negative swing, other is the positive swing. If you are more inclined towards the positive swing, and this is where the actual rituals in religions come into effect, and they come into play through those rituals. And that is the role of rituals, nothing more. If you adopt those rituals 5 times a day, or whatever a religion says to his followers, you get into the habit of tuning, and that tuning ultimately makes you connected. And once you are connected, oh, it's information downloading, it's downloading, and then you become you become a container. And through that container, some of the information is then made to upload. In today's terminology, this is uh, Sufism or spirituality.
Someone asked, do people know how to take the next step, use the connection, and communicate? What do you think, Kamran or Asif? Your hand's up. You don't have to raise your hand. You're not in school. Okay, Kamran. Oh,
Yeah. I think one word: humility. Humility.
okay. Explain what you mean by humility.
Um, n- Not to consider anyone less than myself. It may
Yes.
be different, but not to consider them less in any other way, whether materially, physically, intellectually, in any form. To actually see them with equal regard. And I mean all of humanity. I feel very challenged when I come across some individuals, and I'm conscious of this need for me to be able to look at people with regard, and the same regard that I give to myself. And if I cannot do that, then humility escapes me, and then I can't become the crucible that KA was referring to.
I would just like to add something. I think this is the basic point, because this humility, it has an expression in Sufism, and it says that we all are one. That is the unity. If you can't see what is love, love is seeing yourself outside your body, because I cannot love any intrinsically. A person only loves himself. The workaround is that you start seeing everybody as yourself. So because
Mm,
this is how the animal instinct has been designed. So in order to overcome that animal instinct, the intellect has given you that power to overpower that instinct in a way. You fool that instinct in a way that, oh, this is me, this is me, this is me, this is me. So if all of this is me, how can I hate you? So
mm.
this is humility, but uh, to
At a
give
higher level.
not actually at a higher level, but actually I would say, because people of today's time, these terms have been so misutilized, that now, in this commercial world, if you say that, I want to work with humility, probably a multinational is going to throw you out, because they are used to a cutthroat competition. They don't want humility in their infrastructure, because that will not give an edge, that will not have Apple bulldoze Huawei, or vice versa. So my point is that why not invent some terminology so that normal people can get themselves conversant with it, and they see, oh, this is what we have been doing actually. So I'm sorry I interrupted, Asif. It's your take.
No, 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 no. Okay.
Yeah, I know you have a
Well,
few more
I
moments to talk.
so I agree with both Kamran Sahabans, 100%. In addition to that, I go for gratitude, the practice of gratitude,
Yes.
because in addition to that we discuss all about, gratitude has a very important component behind, and that is the shifting of focus.
Yes,
In fact,
indeed.
if we have to go above the next level, so what is the principle behind this phenomena? The principle is shift your focus. On the basis of that principle, we develop practices, because question is about how to go next level. It's a technical question. So there must be a technique or a solution. So gratitude is a technique and solution that works for everywhere if we do it constantly. Because those people who are not go for gratitude, or don't have gratitude, is just only because their focus is on things that they don't have. Therefore, gratitude is not coming inside. So if they deliberately try to shift their focus on something that they have, and practice gratitude, then it will come automatically, because it's all about training your mindset. All Sufi practices in all over the world is all about training yourself, as Kamran Sahab and all people are discussing here. So, in my point of view, with humility, gratitude is also a very, very important component.
Yes.
Someone asked, and I think this is important, asked about gratitude, asked about a child being have more humility than an adult. A child doesn't have the stress. A child finds that joy in every moment. You know, if he's brought up by parents who help him more, that's a child. And unfortunately, as we grow, we develop all the stress and strain, and we think I have to listen to what Shafat says, or I have to listen to what Cameron says, and I'm all wrong. We lose that innocence as we grow older as people. And maybe we can start here tomorrow because I have to close the show now. I'm already late on closing it. But I want to thank you guys for coming. It was really wonderful and very special today. And I'll be back tomorrow. I know we're changing that soon, but not tomorrow. Can you guys come tomorrow? I know Asif will probably come, but we'll take it from there. And I need to close now. This is Carla with Mindplore with friends. We'll talk about that in a moment, Safat, and we're going to wave goodbye and laugh ourselves out.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.